The Silent Revolution, 7 Ancient Principles for Living Beyond the Noise. Listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal will either liberate you or make you uncomfortable. Right now, at this very moment, you're living someone else's life. You're making decisions based on what they might think. You're holding back dreams because of what they might say. You're exhausting yourself trying to meet expectations that were never yours to begin with. And the most tragic part? Most of these people whose opinions you're so worried about aren't even thinking about you. They're too busy worrying about what someone else thinks of them. We've created a world where everyone is performing and nobody is living, where everyone is broadcasting and nobody is building, where everyone is seeking attention and nobody is finding peace. You wake up and immediately check who noticed you while you were sleeping. You share moments before you've even experienced them. You measure your worth by metrics that change every time you refresh the screen. And somewhere in all this noise, you've lost touch with the one person who actually matters: yourself. The ancient Stoics lived in a world just as chaotic as ours. They faced wars, plagues, political intrigue, and the constant pressure of maintaining appearances in societies that could be brutal to those who stepped out of line. Yet they discovered something that we've completely forgotten in our modern rush toward constant visibility. They learned that true power doesn't come from being seen by everyone. It comes from being known by yourself. Real strength isn't measured by applause. It's measured by the unshakable foundation you build when nobody is watching. Marcus Aurelius could have made every thought public. As Emperor of Rome, his words carried weight that could change empires. Yet he chose to write his deepest insights in a private journal, never meant for publication. Seneca could have flaunted his wealth and influence constantly. Instead, he regularly practiced voluntary simplicity, removing himself from luxury to remember who he was without it. Epictetus, who went from being enslaved to becoming one of history's most influential teachers, built his entire philosophy on a single revolutionary idea: you control your mind and therefore you control everything that truly matters. These weren't people running from society. They were leaders, advisors, and teachers deeply engaged with the world. But they understood something we desperately need to relearn. Your power multiplies when you stop dispersing it across thousands of meaningless interactions and instead concentrated on your own development, your own truth, your own path. Today I'm going to share 7 transformative principles that will teach you how to become so focused on your own growth that the opinions of others fade into irrelevance. This isn't about becoming cold or disconnected. It's about becoming centered in yourself so deeply that nothing external can shake your foundation. But here's what I need you to understand before we go further. Most people will watch this, feel inspired for about 15 minutes, and then return to exactly the same patterns that have been draining them. They'll go right back to checking likes, seeking validation, and performing for an audience that doesn't actually care. The difference between those people and you comes down to one thing: your willingness to actually implement what resonates with you today, not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, but right now. If you're serious about this transformation, prove it to yourself by hitting that like button. Not for the algorithm, not for me, but as a personal commitment that you're done living for everyone else and ready to start living for yourself. And if this message is speaking to something deep in your soul, if you're exhausted from the performance and hungry for something real, write this in the comments. I choose depth over display. These 7 principles follow a specific progression. Each one builds on the previous, creating an interconnected system that the Stoics called integrated living. Skip one and you'll miss the foundation for the next. Ignore the sequence and you'll find yourself confused about why the changes aren't sticking. The principle of intentional obscurity. Every single day you make a choice that determines whether you're building a life or building an image. Most people don't even realize they're making this choice because it happens automatically, conditioned by years of social programming. You experience something meaningful, and your first impulse isn't to fully absorb it. It's to capture it, frame it, and share it. You achieve something significant, and before you've even processed what it means to you, you're crafting the announcement. You're learning something valuable, and instead of integrating it deeply, you're already planning how to teach it to others. But here's what nobody tells you about this constant broadcasting. Every time you share an experience before you fully digested it, you rob yourself of the depth that experience could have given you. Every time you announce a goal publicly, your brain gets a satisfaction hit as if you've already achieved it, reducing your motivation to actually do the work. Every time you perform your life for others, you lose touch with what your life actually feels like from the inside. The Stoics practice something radical. They deliberately kept the most important parts of their lives private, not because they were ashamed or hiding, but because they understood that some things gain power through protection. A seed doesn't grow faster when you dig it up to show people. In fact, constant exposure kills it. Your dreams, your struggles, your transformations, they need the darkness of privacy to develop properly before they're ready to see light. Think about Marcus Aurelius writing his meditations. These weren't blog posts or social media updates. They were private reflections, conversations with himself about how to be a better person, how to handle challenges, how to stay true to his principles. He never imagined millions of people would read them 2,000 years later. He was writing for an audience of one, himself, and paradoxically, that's exactly why his words have survived and continue to transform lives, because they were authentic, not performed. Intentional obscurity means you get comfortable with the gap between who you're becoming and who people think you are. It means you stop trying to bring everyone along on your journey and instead focus on actually making the journey. It means you develop the strength to change without the need for witnesses, to grow without the requirement of applause, to transform without the validation of acknowledgement. Here's what this looks like in practice. You start reading books that challenge you, but you don't post about every insight. You let the wisdom integrate into your thinking without immediately trying to teach it. You begin a new practice that improves your life, maybe meditation or journaling or a fitness routine, but you keep it private long enough to know it's actually working before you even think about sharing. You make significant changes in how you approach relationships or work or money, but you let the results speak eventually rather than the announcement speak immediately. When you embrace intentional obscurity, something magical happens. You start living for substance instead of recognition. You make decisions based on what will actually improve your life, rather than what will look impressive to others. You develop genuine confidence that comes from real accomplishment, rather than performed success. The noise of other people's opinions fades because you're no longer inviting everyone to comment on every aspect of your existence. Right now, today, identify one area of your life where you've been performing instead of progressing. Maybe it's your goals, your struggles, your learning, your relationships. Make a commitment to yourself to develop that area in complete privacy for the next 90 days. No posts, no announcements, no updates, just you, the work, and the growth. Notice how different it feels to pursue something without an audience. Notice how much clearer your motivations become when validation isn't part of the equation. The mastery of selective availability. Here's a truth that will change how you see your time and energy. You are not required to be accessible to everyone all the time. Yet somehow we've created a culture where being constantly available is seen as a virtue, and having boundaries is seen as being difficult. You're expected to respond immediately to messages, to always be reachable, to make yourself available whenever anyone decides they need your attention. And in meeting these expectations, you've given away something irreplaceable: your sovereignty over your own time, attention, and energy. The Stoics understood something profound about availability. Seneca wrote extensively about the importance of withdrawing from constant social obligations to preserve time for thinking, learning, and self-development. He called people who lived entirely for others slaves to public opinion, not because caring about others is wrong, but because losing yourself entirely in others' needs and wants means you never develop your own substance. Think about your typical day. How much of it belongs to you versus belongs to responding to others? Your phone buzzes and you immediately check it. Someone sends a message and you feel obligated to respond right away. An invitation comes and you say yes, even though you'd rather have quiet time. A problem arises that isn't yours and you take it on anyway. By the end of the day, you've been everywhere for everyone except present for yourself. Selective availability means you make conscious choices about when and how people can access you. It means you create sacred spaces in your day that belong only to you and your priorities. It means you understand that being a good friend, partner, or colleague doesn't require being constantly on call. In fact, you're a better friend, partner, and colleague when you're not depleted from being over-available. This isn't about being selfish or uncaring. It's about recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup. When you're constantly available to everyone else, you're fundamentally unavailable to yourself. You have no time to think deeply, to pursue your goals, to rest properly, to integrate your experiences. You become a reaction machine, constantly responding to external demands without ever generating anything from your own internal wisdom. Here's how you practice selective availability starting today. First, create unavailable blocks in your schedule. These are non-negotiable periods where you're simply not accessible. Maybe it's the first hour after waking or certain evenings or weekend mornings. During these times, your phone is off or in another room. Messages go unanswered. The world continues without your constant input, and you reclaim time for what actually matters to you. Second, slow down your response time deliberately. We've been conditioned to believe that a good response is a fast response. But often a good response is a thoughtful response, and thoughtful requires time. When someone reaches out, unless it's a genuine emergency, give yourself permission to respond when you're ready, not the moment they demand your attention. You'll find that most things that seemed urgent really weren't, and your delayed response is actually better than your immediate reaction would have been. Third, get comfortable saying no without elaborate explanations. You don't owe everyone a detailed justification for how you spend your time. A simple "I'm not available for that" or "that doesn't work for me right now" is sufficient. The people who respect you will accept your boundaries. The people who don't respect your boundaries are exactly why you need them. Fourth, audit your availability commitments. Look at everything you've said yes to, everything you're a part of, everyone who has regular access to your time. Ask yourself honestly, does this serve my growth, my values, my authentic priorities? If the answer is no, begin the process of gracefully extracting yourself. Your time is finite. Spending it on things that don't matter to you is spending your life on things that don't matter to you. When you master selective availability, people initially might be surprised or even upset. They've become accustomed to your constant accessibility, and boundaries feel like rejection to those who benefited from your lack of them. But here's what happens next. The people who truly value you adjust and respect your boundaries. The relationships that were draining naturally fade, and you find yourself with space to breathe, to think, to build, to become. You discover that you're actually more present in the moments you choose to be available, because you're not spread thin across 1,000 obligations. Your friendships deepen because you're bringing your full self to fewer interactions, rather than a depleted self to many. Your work improves because you have protected time to focus without constant interruptions. Your sense of self strengthens because you're living according to your own priorities, rather than everyone else's urgency. The discipline of private victories. Right now, I want you to think about your greatest accomplishment in the last year. Got it? Now ask yourself this. How many people knew about it while you were working toward it? If the answer is many, I'll tell you something uncomfortable. You probably worked harder on making it look good than on making it actually good. We've confused documentation with achievement. We've mistaken announcements for progress. We've turned our goals into content and wondered why they feel hollow when we reach them. The Stoics had a completely different approach to achievement. They believed that the most important victories are the ones nobody sees. The moment you resist a temptation when you're alone, the day you keep a commitment to yourself when breaking it would be easy, the hour you spend developing a skill when you could be entertaining yourself. These private victories, these moments when you choose growth over comfort with no audience to impress, these are what actually build character and capability. Epictetus taught that true progress is invisible. It happens internally, in your thoughts, your choices, your disciplines. By the time progress becomes visible to others, the real work has already been done. The person who loses 50 pounds didn't transform in the moment they revealed their new body. They transformed in the hundreds of private moments when they chose discipline over convenience, commitment over comfort, future results over immediate gratification. But somewhere along the way, we stopped valuing private victories. We started believing that if something isn't witnessed, it didn't happen. That if an achievement isn't acknowledged, it doesn't count. That if a struggle isn't shared, it's somehow less real. This is a devastating lie that's robbing you of your power. The private victories are more real, more valuable, more transformative than any public validation could ever be. Think about what happens when you announce a goal publicly. You get immediate positive feedback. People like it, comment supportively, tell you they believe in you. Your brain interprets this as success and releases feel-good chemicals. You get the reward without doing the work. This is why so many publicly announced goals never get achieved. Your brain already got what it wanted, approval and validation, so the motivation to do the actual hard work decreases. Now think about keeping a goal private. No announcement, no updates, no validation, just you and the work. Every day you show up, nobody knows. Every obstacle you overcome, nobody notices. Every small win along the way, nobody celebrates. It's harder. Much harder. But you know what else it is? Real. When you finally achieve that goal, you'll have done it for the right reasons. Not for applause, but for growth. Not for validation, but for transformation. Not because others expected it, but because you committed to it. Here's how to embrace private victories in your life. First, identify your most important goals for the next 6 months. Write them down, but keep them completely private. Don't tell your friends, don't post about them, don't even mention them casually. Let these goals be a sacred conversation between you and your future self. Work on them daily in silence and watch how different the motivation feels when validation isn't part of the equation. Second, create a private tracking system, a journal, a simple spreadsheet, a notebook, anywhere you can record your daily disciplines and small wins that nobody else sees. Did you stick to your morning routine? Did you resist that temptation? Did you push through when quitting was easier? Track it privately. This creates accountability to yourself rather than to an audience. Over time, you'll build a record of private victories that shows you exactly who you are when nobody is watching. Third, celebrate your wins privately first. When something good happens, when you achieve a milestone, when you overcome a challenge, sit with it privately before sharing it. Let yourself feel the genuine satisfaction of accomplishment before you dilute it with the need for external validation. You'll discover that authentic pride in your own achievement feels completely different from the temporary high of other people's approval. Fourth, embrace the long game. Private victories don't provide instant gratification. They're investments that compound over time. The reading you do today might not pay off for years. The skills you develop in secret might not be revealed until the perfect opportunity arises. The character you build when nobody is watching becomes who you are when everyone is watching. Trust the process of invisible growth. When you commit to private victories, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Dangerous because you're no longer controlled by need for approval. Dangerous because you're building real capability instead of performing competence. Dangerous because you're playing a completely different game than everyone else. One where the only scorecard that matters is your own integrity and growth. The practice of digital minimalism. Let me tell you about the most socially acceptable addiction in human history. It doesn't require needles or pills. It fits in your pocket and you're encouraged to check it constantly. It's your relationship with digital technology, and it's quietly destroying your ability to think deeply, connect genuinely, and build anything of substance. Right now, at this moment, there are apps on your phone specifically designed by teams of engineers whose only job is to capture and hold your attention. They've studied human psychology, identified your vulnerabilities, and created systems that exploit them perfectly. Every notification, every infinite scroll, every autoplay feature, every recommendation algorithm. They're all designed to keep you engaged, distracted, and coming back for more. And it's working brilliantly. The average person now checks their phone over 100 times per day. We spend hours scrolling through other people's curated highlights while our own lives pass by unexamined. We consume endless content but create nothing of value. We collect thousands of connections but cultivate few genuine relationships. The Stoics didn't have smartphones, but they understood the principle perfectly. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of protecting your mind from unnecessary input. He recognized that what you allow into your consciousness shapes your thoughts, your emotions, and ultimately your character. If you're constantly filling your mind with noise, drama, outrage, and other people's problems, you leave no space for your own wisdom to develop. Digital minimalism isn't about becoming a Luddite or rejecting technology completely. It's about using technology deliberately, rather than letting technology use you. It's about reclaiming your attention from the apps that have stolen it and redirecting it toward what actually matters. It's about creating space in your day for boredom, for deep thought, for genuine connection, for the kind of focused work that produces real results. Think about your relationship with your phone right now. Be honest, can you go an hour without checking it? Can you sit in silence without reaching for it? Can you have a meal without looking at it? Can you wake up without immediately diving into it? If the answer to any of these questions is no, you don't own your phone. Your phone owns you. You've given the most powerful tool ever created for distraction, complete control over your attention. Here's what digital minimalism looks like in practice. First, remove all social media apps from your phone. If you need to check them for work or to stay in touch, do it from a computer during specific times. This single change removes the impulse to mindlessly scroll and creates friction that helps you regain control. You'll be shocked at how many times per day you instinctively reach for your phone to check something that isn't there anymore. Second, Turn off all non-essential notifications. Your phone should serve you, not summon you. The only notifications you actually need are calls and messages from important people. Everything else, emails, app updates, news alerts, they can wait until you choose to check them. This simple change transforms your phone from an attention thief into a tool you use intentionally. Third, establish phone-free zones in your life. Your bedroom should be sacred space where phones don't enter. The first hour after waking should be yours, not given to checking what everyone else is doing. Meals should be experienced fully, not documented and scrolled through. Create boundaries that protect the most important moments of your day from digital intrusion. Fourth, replace scroll time with creation time. Every moment you spend consuming content created by others is a moment you're not creating anything yourself. The Stoics believed in active engagement with life, not passive consumption. Set a rule for yourself that for every hour you spend consuming digital content, you must spend at least an equal amount of time creating something, writing, learning a skill, building something, having a real conversation. Fifth, practice regular digital Sabbaths. 1 day per week or even just half a day, go completely offline. No phone, no computer, no screens. Just you, the physical world, and real human connection. Initially, this will feel uncomfortable, even anxiety-inducing. That discomfort is exactly why you need it. It reveals how dependent you've become on digital stimulation and how weak your ability to be present has grown. When you embrace digital minimalism, the first few weeks are challenging. You'll feel phantom vibrations from notifications that aren't there. You'll have impulses to check things constantly. You'll feel like you're missing out on something important. But push through this withdrawal period and something remarkable happens. Your attention span increases. Your ability to think deeply returns. Your sleep improves. Your real relationships deepen. Your productivity soars. You start experiencing your actual life instead of watching everyone else's curated versions of theirs. You'll discover that all the things you thought you were missing by being less connected online were actually keeping you from what matters most. The outrage you no longer see doesn't affect your peace. The drama you don't follow doesn't drain your energy. The comparison you avoid protects your contentment. The mindless consumption you eliminate creates time for meaningful creation. The art of strategic silence. In a world that constantly demands your opinion, your reaction, your input on everything, choosing silence has become a revolutionary act. We've created a culture where having something to say about everything is seen as engagement, and keeping your thoughts to yourself is seen as apathy. But the Stoics understood something we've forgotten. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every opinion needs to be shared. Not every reaction needs to be expressed. Sometimes, often, silence is the wisest response. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to speak only when necessary and to add value with his words. Epictetus taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we speak. These weren't just nice sayings. They were practical wisdom born from understanding that most of what we say is unnecessary, that silence often communicates more than words, and that protecting your energy includes protecting it from pointless conversations. Think about your last week. How many words did you speak that needed to be spoken? How many opinions did you share that actually changed anything or helped anyone? How many reactions did you express that improved the situation? How many arguments did you engage in that led to growth rather than just exhaustion? If you're honest, you'll realize that a significant percentage of your words were wasted breath, thrown into conversations that went nowhere and achieved nothing. Strategic silence doesn't mean never speaking. It means speaking with intention. It means your words carry weight because you don't scatter them carelessly. It means people listen when you talk because you've built credibility through discernment. When everyone else is shouting, the person who speaks calmly and rarely commands attention. When everyone else is reacting immediately, the person who pauses and considers becomes trusted for their wisdom. Here's what strategic silence looks like in practice. First, develop the pause. When someone says something that triggers you, when a situation invites your immediate reaction, when an opinion forms in your mind, pause before expressing it. Count to 5 slowly. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, does this need to be said by me? Does it need to be said now? Does it need to be said at all? Most of the time, you'll discover the answer is no, and your silence serves you better than your words would have. Second, stop defending and explaining yourself constantly. The Stoics believed that your actions should speak for your character, not your justifications. When someone misunderstands you, resist the urge to immediately correct them. When someone criticizes you, don't jump to defend every choice. Let your results speak over time. The people whose opinions matter will see your character through your consistent actions. The people whose opinions don't matter aren't worth the energy of explanation. Third, exit conversations that drain you. Not every discussion deserves your participation. When you sense a conversation devolving into gossip, complaint, or pointless argument, you have permission to simply exit. You don't owe anyone your continued engagement in energy-draining interactions. A simple, "I'm going to step away from this conversation" is all that's needed. Protect your peace by refusing to participate in chaos. Fourth, embrace silence in your daily routine. Create periods where you're simply quiet, not consuming podcasts or music or content, just existing in silence. This feels uncomfortable initially because we've become addicted to constant input. But in silence, you hear your own thoughts. You process your experiences. You connect with intuition that gets drowned out by constant noise. Some of your best insights will come from these silent periods. Fifth, let others fill the silence. In conversations, resist the urge to fill every pause with words. When someone finishes speaking, wait. Often they'll continue and share something deeper than their initial response. When you ask a question, give space for a real answer rather than jumping in with your own thoughts. The person who masters silence in conversation learns more, builds deeper connections, and exerts quiet influence. Strategic silence also means knowing what information to keep to yourself. Your struggles don't need to be shared with everyone. Your goals don't need constant announcements. Your opinions don't need to be broadcast widely. Create circles of trust. Some things you share with your inner circle, some things you share with select individuals, and some things you keep entirely to yourself. This discretion protects your energy and ensures that when you do speak, it's to people who will actually hear you. When you master strategic silence, something interesting happens. You become more interesting. The person who speaks sparingly but meaningfully draws more genuine attention than the person constantly broadcasting. Your words carry more weight because people know you don't waste them. Your presence becomes more valued because it's not constantly available. You develop a reputation for wisdom because you've learned that wisdom often sounds like silence. The commitment to invisible excellence. Society celebrates visible success, the promotion everyone knows about, the body transformation documented on social media, the achievement that comes with public recognition. But the Stoics understood that the most important excellence is the kind nobody sees, the discipline you maintain when it would be easier to quit, the integrity you uphold when no one would know if you compromised, the effort you invest when there's no immediate payoff. This invisible excellence is what actually builds character and capability. Think about an iceberg. The massive structure everyone sees and admires above water is impressive. But it's only impressive because of the much larger structure beneath the surface that nobody sees. That hidden foundation is what makes the visible part possible. Your life works the same way. The visible success you might achieve one day will only be possible because of the invisible excellence you practice today. Seneca wrote about the importance of living as though a sage was always watching, not to perform for them, but to hold yourself to a higher standard even when no external accountability exists. This is the essence of invisible excellence. You don't need applause to do excellent work. You don't need recognition to maintain your principles. You don't need witnesses to keep your commitments to yourself. You do these things because they align with who you've decided to be. Most people only put in extra effort when someone is watching. They work harder when the boss can see. They're more disciplined when sharing it publicly. They maintain their principles when reputation is at stake. But what happens when nobody is watching? That's where your true character lives. That's where invisible excellence is either practiced or abandoned. And that's exactly where the foundation for everything else in your life is being built or eroding. Here's how you cultivate invisible excellence. First, keep private commitments to yourself with the same seriousness you keep public commitments to others. If you tell yourself you're going to wake up early, read daily, or stick to a practice, honor that commitment as if you made it to someone you deeply respect. Because you did. You made it to yourself, and that should mean more than any external commitment, not less. Second, do your best work even when no one will see it. The email you send, the project you complete, the task you finish, give them excellent effort regardless of recognition. This isn't about being taken advantage of. It's about building an identity as someone who does excellent work because that's who you are, not because someone is measuring you. This internal standard becomes your competitive advantage because most people only do the minimum required. Third, maintain your integrity in small private moments. Don't lie to yourself about whether you actually did the work. Don't cheat on your diet when alone. Don't cut corners that nobody would notice. These small private choices seem insignificant, but they're actually everything. They're building the neural pathways that determine who you become. Each time you maintain integrity privately, you strengthen your character. Each time you compromise privately, you weaken it. Fourth, celebrate your private progress. You don't need public recognition to acknowledge your own growth. Keep a journal where you record the invisible victories. The day you resisted temptation, the moment you chose discipline over convenience, the time you kept going when quitting was easier. These private celebrations build internal motivation that's far more sustainable than external validation. Fifth, develop skills in secret. Instead of announcing you're learning something new, just learn it quietly. Instead of posting about your fitness journey, just get fit. Instead of talking about the book you're going to write, just write it. Let the development happen in private until the skill or result speaks for itself. You'll discover that the learning is purer when validation isn't part of the process. Invisible excellence creates compound returns. The discipline you practice privately becomes your default in public. The integrity you maintain when no one is watching becomes your reputation when everyone is. The skills you develop in secret become your advantage when opportunity arrives. You're not just building capabilities. You're building character that can't be faked, bought, or borrowed. When you commit to invisible excellence, you stop needing the world to acknowledge every step of your journey. You develop internal metrics of success that are far more meaningful than external ones. You know when you've lived up to your standards regardless of whether anyone else notices. This self-sufficiency of validation is perhaps the greatest freedom you can achieve. You become unshakable because your sense of worth comes from who you know yourself to be in private, not from what others perceive in public. We've journeyed through 7 transformative principles that the Stoics practiced daily: intentional obscurity, selective availability, private victories, digital minimalism, strategic silence, and invisible excellence. Each one challenges the modern obsession with visibility, validation, and constant performance. Each one offers you a path back to yourself, to clarity, to authentic power that comes from within rather than from external sources. But here's the critical truth. Knowing these principles changes nothing. Only practicing them creates transformation. The Stoics didn't just study philosophy, they lived it daily, often imperfectly but always intentionally. They understood that wisdom without application is just entertainment. So the question isn't whether these principles make sense to you intellectually. The question is whether you're willing to implement them practically. Start today with just one principle. Choose the one that resonated most deeply. The one that made you uncomfortable because you recognized how much you need it. Maybe you need to embrace intentional obscurity and stop performing your life online. Maybe you need to practice selective availability and reclaim your time from constant demands. Maybe you need to commit to private victories and stop announcing every goal before you've done the work. Whatever speaks to you most urgently, that's where you begin. The world will fight your transformation. It's addicted to your attention, your reactions, your performance. When you start pulling back, living more privately, speaking less but meaning it more, some people will be confused or even upset. They've grown accustomed to your constant availability and visibility, but their discomfort with your boundaries isn't your responsibility. Your responsibility is to become who you're meant to be, and that requires protecting yourself from the noise that prevents that becoming. Remember, the most powerful revolutions happen silently. While everyone else is shouting about change, you're actually changing. While others are performing transformation, you're experiencing it. While the world is focused on who can get the most attention, you're focused on who you're becoming when no one is paying attention. That's where real power lives. That's where authentic transformation happens. That's where you discover who you actually are beneath all the performance. If this message resonated with something deep within you, take action right now. Hit that like button as a commitment to yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me which principle you're implementing first. And subscribe to this channel because we're building a community of people who choose substance over performance, depth over display, and authentic growth over empty validation. The silent revolution starts with you in this moment, with the decision to stop living for the audience and start living for your own evolution. Your journey toward unshakable inner strength begins now, not someday when conditions are perfect, but today with the choice to turn inward and build something real. The world needs fewer performers and more people of genuine substance. Choose to be the latter. Choose the silent path. Choose yourself.